Howdy, folks. Happy Tuesday. We are back. I was up at the Maple Leafs Canadians game, or should I be more precise and say the Laval Toronto Marlies game?
Yeah.
Russ, and we'll talk about this a little bit with the Leafs a little bit in the show, but I was surprised. Apparently, some of the reporters were contacted from fans who were pissed off that for one of the three home games that the Leafs had at Scotiabank Arena, they played, I would say, 90% Marley lineup. And
see, that's kind of rough. Like the Flyers yesterday did have Van Riemsdyk in there, and Giroux and Konechny and Provorov and Gostisbehere, right? So and McDonald was a regular too, and Elliott. So that's the most that they've had so far. But before that, yeah, they've had games where there's probably been 4 or 5. That is the least I've seen. And this is where, we brought this up a couple weeks ago, that there's a little bit of a red flag here because people are paying money for these games.
Well, 8 preseason games, I think, is the most that any NHL team plays. And I
thought 9. I thought I saw 9 somebody.
Yeah, I mean, maybe somebody plays 9, but usually the Leafs have the most or second most, or they're really up there. And it gets to be a grind. And in the first 4 games, what they did was they had one split squad with Matthews, one split squad with Tavares. And that seemed to be fine with everybody. But then Babcock wanted to put most of the players who he expects to be on the NHL roster on one team so they can work on the power play and things of that nature and get used to each other. The problem is that the other lineup is the lineup that nobody wants to see unless you're going to Ricoh Coliseum, now called Coca-Cola Coliseum. But yeah, so that and the thing is, they have 3 more games before Saturday, including a back-to-back with Detroit, and more than likely they're going to play the bad lineup or the AHL lineup the next game in Toronto on Friday. I mean, if they play, somebody was making the point that Freddie Anderson needs to get the start in the last game, but because between that game and the start of the regular season is like 5 days, and if they start him on Friday, it's a day longer. So they want him to be fresh and have a game under his belt right before the season. So that'll be interesting. But I have to say this, as somebody who is fortunate enough to be covering the team and be in the press box, the only negative thing I can say is that we members of the media and season ticket holders who are there for every game are subject to the music that is played at the arena, and the same music, and usually they play it at the same times during the game. And this is just my personal preference, but Sweet Caroline sucks. Sweet Caroline, the Neil Diamond song, is a song for the Boston Red Sox. That is where it belongs. It has been adopted by a number of different teams as a sing-along thing for their fans.
Yeah.
And last year at the last TV timeout in the third period, it was always Sweet Caroline time. And if I could take a couple pencils and poke out my eardrums at that point, I would.
I hate it, but I will tell you this: like a couple of years ago, the Mets decided to stray away from those kinds of things, and they adopted Piano Man as their song, right? And it's like, look, do I think it's a little weird for 20-year-olds to want to sing Piano Man? I do. Yes. But is it better than Sweet Caroline? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like the state of New Jersey adopting Born to Run as their song, which is a song about wanting to leave New Jersey. But
swamps of Jersey.
Now the thing is, and I don't know if the game ops will play around with things to test it to see if they like it or if it works. And the song that I believe was the replacement was the outfield. Josie's on a vacation. Yeah, I know. They always want to sing along. I mean, you know what? Right now,
sing along to that. You've got to. For one thing, that guy's got a weird voice. Like nobody is in that key.
Yeah, I know. But fans do sing along with that.
Wow.
I know. And the other thing is, and I can't remember what the goal song was last year. I think I blanked it out of my memory, but they experimented, and the Leafs only scored 1 goal yesterday. They used "You're Making My Dreams Come True" by Hall & Oates.
Horrible song.
And you're right. And the thing is, it's not like it's a modern, it's not. So I don't know if that's going to remain. I don't have a big problem with that because at least it's of my era and not something that I would despise. But they're playing around with things, so I'm sure fans have input on that, and I'm sure some people were saying no more Sweet Caroline, and hopefully that's the case. But we'll see.
I don't understand why they're playing Your Love. I'm looking at the lyrics. It doesn't seem like a good sing-along kind of lyrics, and there's not that many lyrics either. It's like 5 lines.
It's the last line of the first verse. Was it? I don't want to lose your love tonight. Right. Everybody sings along with that.
Disgusting.
I know.
That's I used to think well of Canadians. Now I'm gonna have to rethink it. So,
wow, come on.
I know. So I saw a movie's getting close to coming out, and I'm not a huge Quentin Tarantino fan. I'll say that right out of the hopper. Not that he's never made a movie I haven't liked. I certainly liked Pulp Fiction, but there's been some really horrific movies from him too. But this one has me interested. Margot Robbie is playing Sharon Tate, so you already know what the subject matter is going to be. And I have to admit, growing up in that era of Charles Manson, that I'm interested.
Usually his action movies are sort of dark comedies. This is, you can't do dark
comedy in this one.
Oh no, my goodness. Yeah, no, that's going to be tough. I mean, that's sort of a departure for him because, Pulp Fiction was, it's out there, and so is Inglourious Bastards and Kill Bill, and
hold on, I've even got something now. So this is one of 3 Sharon Tate movies that will be coming out this year.
What is this? Christopher Columbus all over again? Oh my God!
And so you've got Kate Bosworth also playing her, and Hilary Duff.
Oh my God!
I don't understand why there would be 3 of them.
Kate Bosworth looks like Sharon Tate, and she's a pretty good actress. So
no, they're all good actresses. Yeah. I have no problem with any of them. But
neither do I.
But it's just like, why are we having 3 of them? That's weird. It's like, see, that's the bad part about Hollywood. Just go with, everybody's got to copy everybody. And I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that, but I'm trying to look at the subject matter. Let's see. So, the film was, they're trying to see, this is something weird where the film was originally set to open on the 50th anniversary of Tate's murder. Like, is that really something we want to celebrate? Like,
yeah. And you know what? I will tell you something right now that is probably the reason why all these movies started getting made, probably went into production late last year and are coming out all around the same time, because Charles Manson died. And because Charles Manson probably would have sued the film companies for misrepresentation. And they were probably waiting to do these stories, waiting to do these movies for a long time, and waiting for that SOB to croak before they could go into production. I think the only movie that I can remember is the TV movie Helter Skelter,
right?
Back in the day. But yeah, no, that's that three. I was mentioning when it was the 500th anniversary of Christopher Columbus, discovering America. So 1992, there were, I think, 2 and maybe 3. I know there was a Tom Selleck one. And there was a Gerard Depardieu 1492 movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the other famous one is the 2 Wyatt Earp movies. You had Wyatt Earp, the Lawrence Kasdan, Kevin Costner movie, and then you had the great Kurt Russell, Val Kilmer Tombstone. And both movies are good, but one's like just about Tombstone, and the other one is about Wyatt Earp's life, and one is like 4 hours long.
I thought that was a good movie, and I'm not really a Western kind of person. Here's the thing, though. Okay, so in the Tarantino movie, you've got Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt in there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I wonder which one is put. Well, would either one of them play?
Is playing a stuntman. And DiCaprio is a struggling actor, so clearly DiCaprio will be in the Manson clan. But it doesn't say who's playing, Roman Polanski, because again, that is a part there's no good way to play the Roman Polanski part.
No. Oh, and well, no, there is a good way because it's before the allegations.
Oh, okay, so
there's no good way to play the Manson part.
No, that's true. And I don't know who Manson's going to be.
Yeah.
It could be Eck for all we know.
Or I could be Gritty for all you know. I mean, I could be Gritty. I mean, you don't know
sat next to me when he fell on the ice, so that's not.
Let's start the show and talk about Gritty.
You ruined it. I thought I was going to be.
It's a little pre-show, you know.
All right. Is that actually going to be part of the show?
Yeah. Right. Yes, it's going to be part of the show.
God.
Leading off with it.
Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, September 25th, 2018.
I'm Carlton the Bear.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday to fill you in the comings and goings in the hockey world. And we're going to speak just briefly about this because we have a lot to do today, and I do have to get out at 2 o'clock exactly.
I do want to get the name. Damon Harriman is playing Charles Manson. I don't even know who that is.
Okay.
Which is better than I thought you were throwing out the name of the person who was playing Gritty, but
we don't know that yet.
No, Charles Manson is playing Gritty.
There was no media availability for Gritty last night following the game.
It's a total mystery who Gritty is. Like we just don't. We know the backstory the Flyers gave us. That's all we know.
The interesting, the confusing thing to me, let's throw this as a confusing thing to me, is the fact that Gritty came out in the first intermission without his skates on and made us all think that Gritty could not skate.
And he fell.
Immediately.
I thought he was fooling around, but he really fell.
This is how exciting the preseason game was last night. The big debate in the press box was whether or not Gritty fell on purpose or not.
We had to get like up close video footage.
People going in slow motion. You know, we've done it.
But then in the second break, like I said, I was complaining. Like I said, he can't even hang with the other hockey mascots if he can't skate. So then he came out in skates.
I have just received a message from Hockey Insider. He says that Gritty is former Flyers goaltender and former Islanders general manager Garth Snow.
There you go. That's perfect. That'd be a perfect role. No, I think that he could skate. Maybe he was afraid to skate. Maybe he couldn't get his skates on in time. But the first intermission, he came out without skating. And you know, having watched, one of my favorite things to watch each year is the mascot game at the All-Star game. I wanted to make sure that Gritty could indeed skate if he was going to be a mascot.
See, Gritty for that game is going to come out with the razor-edged goalie stick like it was in Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Here's the thing, though, and I tweeted this, and I will say this for our audience. So Gritty was first shown on the kiss cam, right? Kissing so what we think is an unsuspecting woman, and that woman acted like me when my great-grandmother would kiss me when she took out her teeth and she didn't put them back in.
Good God, good Lord. I think that was a strange way to introduce Gritty to the world. I do think I've heard Gritty rumors. I've got Gritty rumors. I do.
It's a G5.
This is a G5. I've heard rumors that there might be something else happening here that might make Gritty make a little more sense. I'm not sure about this, but I've heard rumors about it, so we'll see.
Gritty and his saintly brother Grindy.
Right. Now, there's something else. There's something else afoot. Put it that way. But he is a frightening-looking mascot. He's not exactly,
I've heard some positive things. Like some people do like it.
Yeah. So, he had his "me grit" or whatever. As his tweet of 2 words got favored 17,000 times or something like that. I mean, the Flyers have taken over the hockey internet with this. I mean, like I got, all kinds of course, being in Philadelphia, we all got from all of our friends around the NHL, just the text this morning from 6 different people, Gritty ? That I got from people all around the
NHL. By the way, I looked though, before we went to the game, who Gritty was following. Gritty was not following any local media, but following one person from Barstool Sports. And I don't understand why, unless that is a key to the identification of Gritty.
Yes, I have another bulletin here. Gritty is joining the Athletic.
That makes sense. That makes sense. There you go. So at least Gritty will be behind a paywall. We'll be happy about that. That'll be good.
Yes, he's replacing Corey Pronman.
Good Lord. All right. Well, anyway, we'll see. Give the Flyers some time. there might be something else. Is all I can say. That's the only gritty rumor I have. There might be something else here.
Let's start with the big signing that
Middle of the night signing.
Middle of the night signing. I'm sure I probably woke you guys up when I texted it to you when I saw it online. I was still
you
up.
can be sure I was just going to sleep, Mike. That's as much as I'll reveal.
Sorry about that.
Let's clear through it.
Shea Theodore was one of the 3 restricted free agents unsigned. He signed a 7-year deal with Vegas at $5.2 million. The interesting thing that Pierre LeBrun reported at about 2 a.m. was that no bonuses, no fluctuation in the salary. It was flat $5.2 million all the way through.
Okay.
I think that's about right in terms of a price
I think it's
for him.
Good. I think it's good for both sides, actually. I think it's pretty cheap, actually. I think it's a little bit on the cheap side, to be honest. I mean, if this is the top defenseman from a team that went to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Well, I don't think he's the top defenseman. I think the top defenseman is Nate Schmidt, but he's going to be gone for 20 games. I think it gave Theodore a little leverage because they really needed him to be in camp and play a few games before the start of the season. Yeah. I think he's a good defenseman. He's he's not a perfect defenseman and he's got some flaws in his game, but I think he proved that he was I thought he was a good defenseman when he was with Anaheim.
No, he's good. I mean, he could skate well. He handles the puck well. He will make an occasional mistake, but he's great on the power play. There's a lot of pluses. The interesting thing, though, is and McPhee, I will say, is very forthcoming. He always has been, and said that initially Theodore's people only wanted a 2-year deal, and he talked him into the longer-term deal. And so that's interesting on a couple fronts. It's interesting because we do have this feeling now that a lot of players and agents, if they're a good player, feel like, hey, I'll just go that 2 years on a bridge and get something even bigger on the outside just to get a high AAV now. That's something that's been happening. So we know that that's a legit strategy that other players have already used. But Vegas did well here by anteing up, and because they need to lock up some guys long-term. And look, as much as we like Eric Brandstrom, apparently he made some mistakes in last night's game. And I think that might hinder him making the team because, he might be a year away now. And so with Schmidt out, if you are indeed a Stanley Cup contender like they are, they had to get Theodore in there. So this is something where even if McPhee paid a little bit more than he'd like to, he had to.
Yeah. Yeah. I do. I agree. He did have to. I think he had to. I do think it's too early to say that Nate Schmidt is the better of the 2 defensemen. I think they're pretty close.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely too early to say.
They're pretty close. I mean, last year Theodore looked really, really good a lot of times. I was I was incredibly impressed with him. So I think it's we knew what happened. I think they're actually getting a bargain. I really do. I don't think
it's a bargain, but I think
it's a reasonable salary. I mean, five
bargain in 3 years.
Right, $5.2 million is basically now what a number 3 gets, a good number 3. Yeah. And they have them locked. I mean, remember, they bought 3 years of unrestricted free agency here. Right. So to buy 3 years of unrestricted free agency and get him at around 5.25, that's pretty good. And if he continues to play the way he did last year, then I think eventually down the line it's a bargain.
Remember, Charles Wong thought he was getting a bargain, and Rick DiPietro, he bought up not only all of his UFA years, but all of his kids and his kids' UFA years too.
But I think that when you look at this, though, when you go down 3 years now, say there's a lockout adjustment and things happen and all that stuff, or whatever, and players end up maybe with a little bit better deal. Who knows? Whatever is going to happen. I just think that in the last 4 years of this deal, you're going to say that, wow, what other team has a top pairing defenseman that's under $6 million? Like, I think that's going to be really hard.
I think there's a legit chance of that. I agree.
I think it's going to be hard.
That's why right now, I mean, for some of the criticism that Lou Lamoriello took not a lot, but there is some from his tenure in Toronto. One of the things that he can say, and the Leafs can say they're very fortunate about, is the fact that he got Morgan Rielly signed for 6 years at $5 million, and that was after the last place season. So he's got 4 more years at $5 million, and that's. I mean, he's their best defenseman. He may not be. I think he's a top 20 to 25 defenseman in the league. But $5 million is a bargain for a player of Rielly's quality.
Yeah, it is. It totally is. I feel that as well. I totally agree.
Now, just to touch quickly, like I said, there are two more restricted free agents. Nick Ritchie from Anaheim. Apparently, the last thing I saw reported out there was that the two sides were far apart. William Nylander, obviously, with Toronto, and Mike Babcock said this morning, per Chris Johnston from Sportsnet, Willie knows we want him back. We'd like him back as soon as possible. That's a business thing between him and Kyle, meaning Kyle Dubas. In saying that, it's way easier to be ready to go if you're here. So he's sending messages to Nylander. Both sides supposedly want the long-term deal. I continue to believe that it's going to end up being the bridge, but we don't know.
I keep hearing that it's going to be compromised into a bridge this weekend at some point. Like at some point, it feels like that's where it's heading. I do think they'll get this done before.
It's got to be a bridge right before the season starts. Otherwise, I think if the Leafs had a number that they really were good with and the agent was good with long term, they'd have signed already.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they got to compromise into something that neither one is happy with, but both can live with for a while, which is the definition of a bridge contract. So that's really where this is all pointing to.
And I think if it ends up being a bridge, because we have the example of a player in the same draft year as Nylander and Sam Reinhart, who scored 24 goals last year, got $3.65 million on a 2-year deal. I think Nylander is probably going to end up a little under 4. And then I think that's reasonable since he scored 61 points in 2 straight years. It's not going to be more than that on a bridge deal. There's no way. Nikita Kucherov got 4.6. No way it's going to be over 4.
Yeah, but Kucherov was 4.6 a while ago. And
by the way, Mike, I don't know if you're aware of this. I just saw there's a Twitter handle called Leafsology. Like that is a direct ripoff of my website, except they threw the Leafs in it, which really annoys me. That's all.
I will definitely bet you on this one that he's going to be closer to 5 than 4. And
no, on a bridge deal, no way.
So yeah, he has to be.
Okay, we'll see. We'll bet.
There's no way you can compare him to Reinhart. There's no way. I mean, he's not even close to Reinhart.
Reinhart scored more goals than him.
It doesn't matter.
24. He just scored 24 goals. Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. But I think that this is contentious enough.
I would say the top end. I'll give you a range. I would say 3.9 to 4.25. That's the maximum he will get.
I'll take the over somewhere around 4.7, somewhere in there.
Okay.
At some point, would they call up Rick Nash if Nylander's out of camp long enough?
It's I don't think
a month worth of games, which I don't think will happen. But if he did, would they do that?
Russ, the one thing that they have in quality and depth is on the wing. I don't think they're in trouble if Nylander doesn't show up. I think
they're in the division that they really feel pretty comfortable in, like that. They feel like the playoffs aren't going to be.
They move Kasperi Kapanen up in the lineup, or they move Andreas Janssen up in the lineup. Not to say they won't miss Nylander, but they won't miss Nylander.
Is Nash working out anywhere? Do we have anybody?
No, we have no idea. I mean,
that's the question. I mean, if he's not working out, then no. I mean, the answer is no.
We don't know. We don't know.
He's got to be working. He's got to be working out to play in the NHL. At his age, you can't just.
Right.
His agent has said status quo in terms of whether he's wanting to continue his career. So right now it's up in the air. I'll bet you anything that if he does continue his career, this is going to be a Matt Sundin scenario. He's going to come back around December or January, allow himself to get back into shape, and then get a prorated amount for 1 year.
Like what we saw with Mike Fisher last year too, the same kind of thing,
Sure.
So yeah. That could be. And speaking of Mike Fisher, the Nashville Predators are the team that we want to talk about today.
Well, one more thing before, because we got Nashville, New Jersey, but one more thing, and it was a breaking news at noon when the waiver wire came out. Zach Smith waived by the Ottawa Senators, and we'll see a lot of recognizable names waived here, but Zach Smith has got 3 years left at $3.25 million. Had a good year a couple years ago. And the quote from Matt Duchene was that this was a kick in the balls for us in the locker room. Wow. This is not. I mean, okay, this is another example of the penny pinching of Eugene Melnyk and the Ottawa Senators. They can save $1,025,000 by sending Smith down to the minors. On the cap, but they're not a cap team, so I don't see the benefit here other than maybe generating some interest.
That's what I think it is.
Yeah, they supposedly had some talks over the summer, and now maybe putting them on waivers. I don't think anybody's going to claim him at his salary, especially the lengthy amount of it. But maybe if they take a haircut, they can get a deal done. So I think that's what it is. But again, this is another saving maneuver by the Sens.
It's horrible timing. I mean, and there's the other thing that really bothers me about this whole thing, is the good teams, and it's not a secret, consult with players before they do things like this. And, so you would have thought that, Duchesne and, Stone would know about this. And for Duchesne to say what he said about that is really, that really tells you that there's a huge disconnect, there's a huge disconnect.
Sure, but again, everybody's making a big deal about Ottawa having, again, they literally only have $8,700,000 in cap space. The Devils have $15 million, and like most everybody leaves the Devils alone. Like, hey, that's a good strategy. Ottawa's saving some money, yes, but there are teams that are saving more. The Islanders are saving as much.
I know, but to me, it's not about the money. It's about what it does to a locker room that's already in shambles. And so to me, it's about the money is yeah, they're saving whatever. That's not an issue to this team. It shouldn't be an issue to it can be an issue to ownership, but to actually the coach and the GM have to be saying like, this is ridiculous, because we have if he is that tight in that locker room, if he's part of the group that you're hoping will rally against will rally against the odds and just rally together, because
fair, right? The Islanders have more cap space, and really, if you really look at the Islanders roster, when we get to that, it's not pretty.
No, I know.
And they signed Lucas Spiza yesterday for $1.5 million, which
good signing. That's a really good signing.
Maybe.
Everyone's terrible last year. It was terrible at the end of the year, and everybody remembers him as as a really big disaster in the final game of the season. But
it's a depth defensive signing for a team that has almost nothing but depth defensemen. How many Scott Mayfields and Thomas Hickeys can you have? That's the problem.
Yeah, maybe, but I think Spies is above those guys in my opinion. At least last year.
I don't know about that.
No,
that's questionable.
Last year, points of the season when people were talking about how good Spies was.
Yeah, but when things got compressed, it got bad for him. And that's really, I look at that as the lasting memory, because he's also on a team that had great structure. Barry Trotz will do all he can to have the Islanders have great structure. But when Boychuk has the mileage he has on him, then Leddy is your best guy, and then your next best guy is Pulak. And then you've got Hickey, Pellick, Spiza, and Mayfield. That is not a good crew.
No, but Spiza, I just disagree. I think Spiza steps above those guys. I think it's good because they have to. This is the Islanders team that just simply has to be better defensively. That's the bottom line.
But again, it's like, yes, we have to be better defensively, but you have to have better defensemen to do it.
Right. That doesn't mean they're going to. But we'll save that for when we talk about the Islanders, which I think will actually be tomorrow. So,
okay. Well, let's get into the Nashville Predators. This is always a fun team to talk about. Finished first in the NHL. This is a team that absolutely was dominant last year after having their great playoff run, high hopes, ran into a very good Winnipeg Jets team, and ran into goaltending issues in the playoffs at the end. The two things that killed them in the playoffs are the two things we always talk about in the playoffs: goaltending and their power play failed them when they got to the Stanley Cup playoffs against Winnipeg. And if that doesn't change, then they go 7 games with Winnipeg, and who knows what happens after that. Looking at some of the numbers, and then I'll let you guys talk about some of the specific players and situations like that. Their goals per game, they were 7th in the NHL with 3.26 goals per game. That's of course that's good. It's not maybe as good as I would have guessed, but that is good. Their goals against per game, though, they were 2nd in the NHL at 2.57, and that is where they really shined for sure. Only the LA Kings had a better goals against per game than the Nashville Predators, but their power play was 12th in the NHL, which for the President's Trophy winning team is not acceptable. And that was an issue all year long. Their penalty killing was 6th, face-off was 2nd, but their number, and they did lead the league in save percentage at 923, and the team 923 save percentage. So that's a shame. It's a shame that in the playoffs, of course, they ran out of steam with Rene, but in the regular season, he was great. He was outstanding. And he showed so by winning trophies.
Similar to a team that we talked about yesterday in Minnesota, all Nashville did during the summer were tweaking ads. I mean, now they added Hartman at the deadline, so you're going to get a full year of him. Tolvanen really wasn't on the radar last year. They brought him over, but I think he'll play regularly this year. They add Dan Hamhuis as sort of the replacement for Alexei Emelin.
Yeah.
But really, I mean, it's they brought the same team back, and that's not a bad thing because they're an excellent team.
Yeah.
I think they're expecting to get better performances out of Kyle Turris. And probably a little more from I would say maybe a little more offense out of Bonino, but I think Bonino is a pretty decent two-way guy. But they need Johansson and Forsberg to produce offensively. Their defense is one of the best in the league. They've locked up Ellis. I think the one thing that you were saying, Ek, about the fatigue of Pekka Rinne is going to lead to them using UC Saros more, maybe right. a split of maybe 50-30. And if they do that, depending on how Saros plays, maybe Saros is the goaltender going into the playoffs, depending on how Rinne is. Rinne is 37 years old, so we know that he's a little long in the tooth, and he's coming up on a contract year. If he plays up to expectations and is to puts himself in a position to get another contract, then they'll probably just go with him. But Saros is there, I think, as the backup. And if worse comes to worse and they find out Saros can't handle it, then they might be in the market for a goaltender at the deadline, because this is a win-now team.
They had a lot of goal scoring last year. Craig Smith bounced back. I thought Johansson had a good year, could have been a little better. Arvidsson, the secret's out. We know that. Fiala had 23 goals. He probably could get a few more. Turris certainly could get more points than what he got. But the issue is, when you look at their top 5 scorers, two of them are defensemen, Subban and Yossi. And so they do have to get more scoring. The loss of Austin Watson, he had 14 goals. Like, Tolvanen's probably going to have to make up that deficit because he'll be out for a good stretch of time.
Yeah.
That's something. And so you look at, I looked at their lines, and I do think they had the makings of 4 good lines, and they have a great defense, but their goaltending's not 100% solid, and their power play definitely has to improve. They're definitely a playoff team, but they're a team that could go 2 rounds and out unless they really hit on everything. And we don't know what the message is. The message still as strong today as it was when Laviolette first got there, because that's the issue with him.
Yeah, and that's the concern. The same thing. We're getting
I got that echo too.
Okay. Maybe
it's gone.
Yeah. The concern for Nashville is the same concern for the teams in the Atlantic. You've got 3 real good teams at the top in the Atlantic, and you've got Nashville, Winnipeg, to a lesser extent St. Louis. I mean, it's going to be a battle to get out of that division, and this is where really good teams. I mean, the playoff structure does not benefit some of these teams who are clumped into one division, where you have an opportunity to play somebody outside your division and then maybe face a division rival in the conference final. Here, I mean, last year they lost in the second round. Last year in the Atlantic, Boston lost in the second round. Toronto lost in the first round. It's not exactly fair, but that they're almost going to face tougher matchups to get out of their own division to get to the higher levels.
That's true. They have a couple of really interesting things on their roster. They're the 19th oldest team, so they're up there in age, but that mainly is the fact that they're the 30th oldest defense, right? They are because they're the 9th youngest forward group. I mean, that's really impressive. They only have one forward who's 30 years old, and
it's an aging goalie. That's the
goalie and an aging defense, right? So you look at that really does play into this, and they have a couple guys that are on crazy good contracts on their offense, on their forwards. Like Sissons is a great example, right? Colton Sissons, who's been very good for them at times and has really shined. I mean, granted he's a 3rd-line player, but he's stepped up, and in the Stanley Cup run a couple years ago when they went to the finals, he was huge. I mean, remember he had a hat trick in a game. He makes $625,000 a year.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not an entry level contract. This is a guy who was drafted in 2012, so I don't think that's an entry level contract. Or maybe it's the end of an entry level contract, but that's still pretty crazy.
I still think that David Poile has got a potential minefield to weave his way around over the next year or so, because
he does. There's no question.
If you look at that, they extended Ellis $6.25 million for, I think it was 8 years. He's on the last year of his current deal. So that kicks in next summer. He had no trade, no move provisions in the deal, which was a lot of people were surprised at because the amount was fairly reasonable for a defenseman of his offensive abilities. But Yossi's contract is up after next year.
Well, they all are basically. I mean, really.
Well, no, I mean, right. Yossi's up after 1920, but it's Hamhuis and Yannick Weber and Matt Irwin, but Subban is under contract for another 3 years, Ekholm for another 3 years, and Ellis has been extended. So the core four are intact. The problem is
the way they're another 4 years, right? Because when you think about this year too. So I mean, because
Yossi's got after this year's got 1 more year, so they can talk about.
But this year hasn't happened, so it's got 2 more years.
Right.
Yossi and Hamhuis and Weber are all they're fine through this year, and they're fine through next year.
Right.
The question is after that, and you put 2 more years beyond that for Ekholm and Subban, right? So,
and I just question whether, and I'm not starting a rumor or anything, but I just question whether this organization is going to want to invest money in a player that they drafted like Yossi, who they know, who has been underpaid the last few years, probably the second biggest bargain in terms of a contract next to John Tavares' old deal with the Islanders, or PK Subban, who's making $9 million. And I think it's an either or scenario. And at that point, I think they're going to choose Yossi. So that might mean in a year or two that PK Subban is on the market.
It could be. I mean,
why would you? No way.
I really don't think so. I mean, I think
unless the cap goes up by a ridiculous
4
amount.
years of him, and he is their face of their franchise. I think that. I mean, he's on the cover of NHL 2019. I think he's not going anywhere. I mean, they're gonna, and I think they'll figure out a way to extend him beyond that too. I mean, the big question for them is obviously Pekka Rinne, who is a UFA at the end of this year. So this is like this. He has 1 year left, and he is, a $7 million cap hit for them. And the question is, where is Saros ready? And they're in kind of a good situation here where they have a year to figure that out.
But Saros, see, that's the thing. Saros is locked up on a backup salary. It's $1.5 million for 3 years. So if it doesn't work out, or if he's nothing more than just a backup, which is not a bad thing, I think he's a pretty decent backup. But if he's nothing more than that, then your options in free agency next year, one of them is Sergei Bobrovsky if he hits the market, and the other one is some Semyon Varlamov. So I mean, there are answers out there if they decide to go that way.
No, there are.
Now, here's 2 interesting things. The first one is the Predators and the Hurricanes are getting together and working with each other's foundations to raise money for Hurricane Florence. So that's nice. Yes. And on the 28th, they're having the first ever Preds Fest. And so that I kind of wonder, will Drake Barahowski be there? Because he should be. I don't know if he was invited though. We'll have to ask Pete.
That's a good question.
Come on, Mike. He's a first-year Predator player.
He's a former Maple Leaf first-round pick.
Everybody was a former Maple Leaf first-round pick at some point.
Yeah. No, I mean,
but I'm just saying, I had to come up with an obscure name. That's all.
That was a very obscure name. It kind of like threw us all here a little bit. That's good.
Actually, the guys for the first Nashville team, like Mitch Korn was on there. Clearly, he's not going to be there.
Jimmy Korn.
JJ Daigneault was on that team. Ek, did you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Jean-Jacques Daigneault.
Absolutely, he was on that team. There's no question about
it.
I
don't know how deep they're going to go on Preds Fest with Sedano. Yeah, he's working for someone else, so he probably won't be there. Now, Kimmo Timonen can go there.
Yes.
Yeah, he could definitely, and Arnold could definitely go there.
Arnold can show up there as
Ryan Parent
as Gritty.
It's Gritty.
It's Gritty.
You're wondering if that was where the Gritty was actually Arnold. That would be hilarious. That would really win the fans over if they knew that right away. All right, so the most interesting thing I found out about this team, in a weird stat, is in doing where this team is from. This is the first team I have done so far in all these things that actually has players from. Let me look at this. From 5 different countries, 3 or more players from 5 different countries.
Mm-hmm.
This is the most international team in the NHL.
Yeah.
It just bars it. I mean, you've got 6 Canadians, which is a good number. That's fine. You've got 3 Americans. But after that, you've got 4 Swedes, 4 Finns, and 3 Swiss players. Like, no team has 3 Swiss players, but they have 3 Swiss players on the team.
Sure.
So really, I mean, that's 4 Swedes and 4 Finns. No one has 8 players from Scandinavia on their team either. It's a really diverse group of players from all around the world. Basically,
I always talk about Jeff Keelty's, drafting, and they really draft from everywhere, this organization, and it shows. And that's a reason they've been able to stay, competitive all these years.
No, definitely, and you can see it, and it's clear as day. I mean, they do have a lot of first round draft picks. I mean, not as many as I thought. I'm looking at the list now. It's like they've got, I think, seven first round draft picks, but they really do have an amazing, and of course, what they do better than anyone in the NHL is they draft defensemen for the NHL. Like they draft. I mean, the defense is, this whole NHL is littered with defense that they've drafted. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, they really have an unbelievable job.
And they have one of the best still. So.
Oh yeah, and they've got. I mean, they have. And what's funny now, this is probably the least amount of defensemen that they've ever had on their roster. Yeah. If you go with what they have roster resource that are actually their own draft, because usually it's 5 or even 6 of them have been their own draft.
They may be up to 6 at the end of the year if Dante Fabros decides to turn pro after his college year. So
right. Right now they're at 3. They have Yossi, Ellis, and Ekholm, who are 3 of their best, of course. But then PK, of course, is not their own pick. Hamhuis and Weber are not their own picks, but even though Hamhuis, it is a return to Nashville, people remember he did probably his most successful years of his career as a Predator. So that's the Predators. I can't wait to try to pick where they're going to finish.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do over unders. We're gonna do that as a part of a show before the season starts next week.
Yeah, and their goalie, their mascot, of course, is named Nash. He is a normal saber-toothed tiger. Just throwing that out there.
So I would say the only area that you could see a potential for a trade, barring massive injuries, is goalie. If Rene,
Rene. I mean, and what people don't know, Poyle, for as conservative as he acts and looks and talks and everything like that, has made some crazy trades over the last couple years. So he could do something crazy, and he's always fun to follow him because he always does something that comes out of nowhere. Last year, getting Torres and that by becoming a part of this Duchesne trade was really kind of surprising. Torres to me is the big question mark on this team, and if he can, because he needs to play like he can really play. He did not seem to be motivated in Nashville very much, which was an issue. But they gave him a lot of money, so that could potentially be one of Poyle's first really legitimately bad signings if it does turn out that he doesn't pick it up.
Well, there are teams that always need centers, so that's one.
Torres is tradable, but it's a good high number though. He's got to perform.
Yeah, he needs to perform. There's no question.
I'll just go on a limb and say he's not getting traded to Arizona. No,
or Ottawa. Okay, so for anywhere he's been, which is odd. So the New Jersey Devils, looking at them, of course they finished 5th in the Metro, sneaking into the playoffs at the very end, and which was really surprising. Not many people picked the Devils.
Thanks to Keith, but it was thanks to Keith Kincaid. He literally won so many games down the stretch. Nobody in the world would have imagined that Keith Kincaid, who is the emoji king, he's a great follow on Twitter, would have, taken over as the starting goalie because Corey Schneider couldn't stay healthy, and then they make the playoffs. Like, that was crazy.
Yeah, no, it is. It is absolutely crazy.
It was fun, though. It was a fun run.
It was a really fun run, and they also had this crazy good record against good teams last year, which is what they were. I mean, as good as they were, as surprising as they were, they struggled against bad teams and beat up on good teams. And I remember whenever I was doing my playoff predictions for them, it was hard to, if you just based on regular season stuff, they were going to beat almost anybody in the first round that they could face because they were that good against like the Penguins, against all kinds of teams during the regular season last year. They were dominant, and they ran up against Tampa, who they actually had a winning record against in the regular season. So they had a really good regular season against really good teams. They consider themselves, like I've said before, they consider themselves the Vegas of the East, and that they're fast, quick. You don't know who these players are, but they're really good. And they play fast, which is what, Vegas plays fast. And that's why they give top teams trouble. That's what they think. But their statistics were kind of less than spectacular. Their goals per game, 3.02, puts them right in the middle at 14. Their goals against, 2.98, puts them at 17. Their power play was 10th. Their penalty killing was 7th. where they were the worst at in the NHL, well, the second worst in the NHL. We had the worst the other day. The second worst in the NHL was the faceoff circle, where they were 30th. This statistic is a strange one sometimes because, we had the other day, I forget who was 31st, but they were actually a really good team. So sometimes that can be deceptive. Their save percentage for having two good goalies, really, which they do have, was 18th in the NHL, which isn't very good. Their 20-man roster, they are seventh youngest in the NHL. So, and
it was a real departure last year. I mean, I know it was injuries.
Yeah.
But Corey Schneider has been looked upon as I'd say a top 10 goaltender, and that really took a hit last year. And Russ is right. Kincaid stepped into the gap and filled it wonderfully and got them, and it was chiefly responsible for them getting into the playoffs. But I would assume that Schneider is going to take more of the number one role back again this year. And as we were talking about a couple days ago, I mean, there's talent here. Obviously, with Hall as being the great player that he is, and you've got some good complementary players like Palmieri and Marcus Johansson and Wood, who just signed a new deal. But I think them growing, it's going to be the Brats and the Heishiers and some of the young guys. I mean, I don't know if a guy like Mike McLeod or I heard
Joey Anderson seems to be on the fast track there, Mike,
And Russ, I heard this from somebody a couple days ago, and I wanted to get your input on it. There's talk about Ty Smith having a chance at making the NHL roster and sticking.
Boy, I wouldn't do that. I actually think their defense is good enough. I mean, Green, Vatanen, Butcher, Severson, Mueller, Santini. Like, why am I even doing that? I like Ty Smith a lot. Let him go back. Let him play the full season. When his team gets eliminated, there's a chance, like the Devils have a chance to make the playoffs, there's still games left, then sign him to his pro contract. But I would rather send him back for one more year. But Joey Anderson's a guy that is a tough kid. Like, he's 5'11", 190, but he's really good hands, good all-around game. He's a very feisty kid who has a great scoring touch. He's played with guys like Austin Matthews. He's played with a lot of different players. And so he's a nice add. But again, I look at this team, Hall, Hischier, Palmieri, those are your big goal scorers. Then after that, you got your Blake Colemans. Brat's not going to reproduce his year from last year. It's not going to happen. His second half already had dipped tremendously. He's still going to be a great penalty killer and still a good player, but he's not going to score like that. So where are these goals coming from? Is it going to come from Zacha? Maybe. This could be a year from him. Nason can get some. Will Wood get 19 again? I can't guarantee you that. I just don't think they have enough scoring. So they're going to have to play this again, very tough style, and all the pressure gets put on their defense and goaltending, especially when they're playing teams like, they have to match up against Pittsburgh and the Flyers and everything. And center-wise, they're good. Travis Zajac now might be a third-line center, might be a second-line center still, depending on where they slot Zacha. They're a team that could definitely not make the playoffs, and it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah,
I agree with that. The interesting thing that they have going on is, so what another team where these players are from, and I've been working on this concept for a while that American GMs, tend to go with American players, and Canadian GMs tend to go with Canadian players, which is sometimes true, and there's some definite exceptions. But this team is largely American. They only have 3 Canadians on the team, which is I haven't found a team yet. I think that has less Canadians than this team has.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean the 3 Canadians being Taylor Hall, of course, being one of them, Travis Zajac, and the other being Damon Severson. So yeah, I mean you're looking at there's 11 Americans, 3 Canadians, and 2 Swiss players. We've got teams with more Swiss players than we could imagine on this team. That we're talking about today with the other team we did today. But yeah, that's surprising, and it's interesting. They have a huge amount of cap space, like you talked about. They have tons of cap space. They've got half of their team is drafted in the first round, which is another big number, 10 out of 20 first round draft picks. And that's a huge number, including 7 of their top 9 forwards are first round draft picks. That's a huge number. To have 7.
This is one of those teams that we're looking at, and everything has to go right just for them to make the playoffs, like maybe, one of the last few games of the season. Whereas I felt like if they made a move to get somebody else who had offensive ability, it would have put them in a lot better spot.
Yeah.
They needed goal scoring, and they didn't get it.
No, dude, that's really true. They really have not gotten it. They have 12 homegrown players, actually 13 homegrown players, but 13 of their 20 are homegrown. So that's
no, they're doing things right that way. I mean, Paul Castron went from Columbus to New Jersey as their director of scouting. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. I think they've done really well drafting. But at the end of the day, they're one of those teams that could literally fall into that middle cavernous spot in the NHL where it's a tough place to be because you're close to making it and you're just as close to missing it.
Yeah, they would be in a good spot if they could just get one more sort of top 5 pick, finish out of the playoffs if they not won the lottery and picked first, but if they could finish, get a top 3, top 4 pick and get another young guy to go along with the guys that they have, that would really help them out.
Right. I mean, they didn't do like Russ said, they've hardly done anything in the offseason. I mean, it's really amazing. I mean, Eric Greba, free agent they signed out of Edmonton, he's not even projected. He might make the lineup.
Right. He probably won't make the lineup.
They signed a couple other free agents, but they were, like guys like Curtis Gabriel. They signed Eric Tingrati,
those are AHL signings. Those are
signings, right? So I mean, you're looking at but the one thing that they've done better than any team we've talked about so far is signing guys out of the college ranks. They have 3 players on this team that are major contributors to this team that are signed out of the college ranks. Butcher's one of them. Can you name the other 2?
Palmieri.
Let me see.
Was he a college guy? Pretty sure.
No, they got him out of they picked him up from Anaheim in that trade.
Oh, that's Anaheim, but he did play in college, didn't he?
Yeah, but I'm talking about guys that were signed out of college.
Signed by them. Okay.
I think wasn't Miles Wood
signed by them. Nope, Wood is not. Wood was drafted in 4th round.
Blake Coleman.
Nope. No. So this is pretty good. It's a good one. I like when I can stump. Like you can't often stump Russ on these. This is a good one. Andy Green,
yeah.
Signed out of the NCAA in
that's Lou. That was a loop.
No, but it's okay. It's just Devils in general.
But that's like still pretty amazing. And then signed in April 2011 out of college, Keith Kincaid.
Okay.
That's turned out to be a heck of a signing.
Those are 2 players who were not drafted. Now Butcher was drafted, of course, but went back, but didn't resign. But the other 2 weren't drafted at all.
No, that's pretty good.
That's a really good number. The other thing this team has a lot of are entry level contracts. That you can imagine. They've got. I mean, he sure is a big one. Obviously, they've got Zaka still on an entry level contract. They've got Brat still on an entry level contract. They've got Jason Anderson, and he's still on an entry level contract too, right? Yeah, and Butcher, of course, is still on entry level. So that's and Mueller too, I think. So that's really impressive. I mean, when you think about that's a lot of players on entry level contract, which is why they have so much cap space. And sometimes if some of those players are stars, the GM will tell you we have that cap space because these guys aren't going to be on entry level contracts forever. We've got to leave space for them.
Right.
So, but not this much space. I mean, they've left a lot of space here. I mean, Hershier is going to be a player who's going to get what's his top?
Hershier could get 35 goals this year.
Yeah, he could is he a $10 million player eventually?
Yes.
Maybe, yeah, probably. So, that is the big question. I had one question I wanted to get to before we leave and we get out of here.
A couple news and notes things too.
Okay, yeah. So this was a question that was posed by Russ. We have the bit was emailed to me to pose to Russ. Okay, we have the big, of course, and why can't I think of his name right now? The American player is going to be drafted first overall coming up.
Jack Hughes.
Jack Hughes. If Jack Hughes and Austin Matthews are in the same draft, who's going higher?
Austin Matthews.
What do you think, Russ?
It's a really good question because, I don't have a size bias.
But there is a size bias.
No. But I don't have a size bias.
No. But I'm saying there is one.
Yes, there is one, but it's not me. I might take Jack Hughes because I have yet to see a defenseman that can cover this kid.
Wow.
Like, that's the problem. Like, he literally, if you watch games of his, he gets open all the time, even in like the summer showcase where, it was a game like he was really neutralized the whole game. Then all of a sudden he opens things up late in the third period. Like it's just he is a different kind of player. And if he gets to be with the right players, he could be better than Austin Matthews. It's possible.
I have to say, I never thought I would ever say this. I secretly hope that he ends up in Vancouver with him and his brother and Pettersson and Besser. I mean, that would be dynamic.
And we got to remember, like, Jack Hughes broke Austin Matthews' record, I believe, last year. I think he did.
Yeah.
Scoring-wise, he had 68 points in 36 games. In the under-18s, he had 12 points in 7 games. Right now, this year, for the NTDP, he's already got 3 points in 2 games. Like, it's just at every level. He had 159 points for the Toronto Marlboros.
Yeah.
In 80 games. He had 58 goals.
And I think, that's the thing. I think that's going to be a benefit for Hughes going forward, is the fact that not only did he play in the U.S., but he played when his father was working for the Leafs. He played in some of the the minor leagues in the Toronto area against top competition, and that I think probably really helped in his development. He's going to be somebody who, I don't know if he comes in right away, but if he's the first pick, he probably will. He's going to be ready.
He's a better skater than Austin Matthews. Right. Matthews is a terrific skater, but Hughes is a better precision skater. He is.
It's going to be fascinating to watch that.
And faster.
Definitely gets you excited to see him in the league. I mean, I'm all in, by the way, on Elias Pettersson. Just like,
I told you. I mean,
you told me, right, and I'm like, I wrote him that he's my early pick for the Calder right now. Just like watching the stuff he's done so far. I mean, and it's crazy. Not just it's preseason, but the little things he does are just incredible.
Yeah. Two quick things. One, PTOs who got released. Scotty Upshall got released by Edmonton. He had a knee injury, and I don't think he ever even got on the ice for them. Yeah. Joel Ward was released from his PTO with Montreal.
That is surprising.
Yeah, Joel Ward without a job. Wow.
And
I mean, he is the best player out there right now that you can grab.
Antoine Vermette might be, and he didn't even get a PTO.
I'll tell you, I think Ron Hextall is watching this broadcast, and the minute we go off the air, he will make his cuts.
Yes,
and checking every 10 minutes.
And Nick Suzuki got sent back to Owen Sound, Russ. So
we knew that.
Yeah, I mean, I thought there was an outside chance, but
I got to tell you, Owen Sound is loaded. Like, I just wrote something for a magazine I write for about Maxim Shushko. I wrote an earlier article and I updated it. Between him and Suzuki, like, they are loaded with offense.
And I'll tell you, in watching Kotkaniemi in person, he was one of the better players for Montreal on the ice last night. He looked really good. Yeah. I think they may give him the 9 games. Montreal may give him the 9 games.
I have no problem giving him the 9 games to see if he's up for it. The chat room told me this, and I did look it up. Capo Caco, who's going to be the number 2 pick, is more than a point a game in Liga. So there'll be a fair amount of discussion before people realize Jack Hughes will be the number 1 pick.
Yeah, and I saw a little note on Reddit. A Finnish scout for a website said that he thinks that Caco is the best prospect coming out of Finland since Barkov. And that means
I think that's real. I mean,
the only thing that means he's better than Laine or
this is a Matthews Laine debate all over again, basically.
See, I don't know if he's a better scorer than Laine. He might be a guy that gets more points. But when I saw him in the under-18s, I was like, wow, this kid is younger than everybody else on the ice, and he was the best kid on the Finnish team. He really does have something. And the other kid is too Julius Honka's brother, Anthony. Okay. Really good. Like, he was really good in the under-18s. I think he's better than his brother.
Wow. So it sounds like this is lining up to be a pretty good 2019 draft then.
Yeah, there's guys.
It's going to be one of those top of the line drafts, like it has the top players for sure. It has some definite star potential there, which means we're going to have Tank Nation all over again, all throughout the NHL this year as we get to the end of the year.
Oh, you got to figure, here's the thing. The odds for, like, the number 1 pick, we talked about it, is like 25%. But I remember when the Sabres tanked, what were the odds for the top 2, Mike? It was like 65% or something?
No, it was for the Sabres, it was 25 for 1 and 20 for 2.
No.
When they lost out on Austin.
No. But together, it had to be close to 50.
Yeah, it was 45%.
Connor McDavid was 45,
okay.
right? Yeah. No, I mean, it definitely tanking does not pay as much for sure as it used to.
But a 45% chance is a pretty good chance.
Yeah, but the thing that made the difference was the fact that you could follow no further than second when that was the thing. They guaranteed themselves at least Eichel.
Right, when they were in that.
Well, no, that was my point. So it was higher than 45%.
Right, 45%. Yeah, to get the number one pick, but you couldn't.
No. But that's what I was saying. If you're one of those teams that tanks and you're guaranteed to get at least the second pick in this draft, you are set for a franchise player like you've never had.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right, but they don't have that. They don't have that rule anymore, though, right? Now
now a team that finishes dead last can fall as far as fourth.
Fourth, right? So that's.
But even fourth in this draft, you're pretty damn good. But still,
But it's not worth tanking. It's fourth.
It is worth tanking.
Yeah, I know you guys always love to lose.
That later.
Mike loves to lose. He loves losing. He thinks losing is the way to go all the time. So yeah, no.
It's worth tanking, Heck. You just have to come around on that.
Oh my God, it's not worth tanking. There's a lot of fans are going to die this year and never see their team play another season. Okay, remember that. On that note, remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow.